All right, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Hell Corridor. This is a very unusual episode because it's mostly going to focus on old video games and whatnot. But I figured I'd do this as a little bit of a treat to myself. This is Ronnie Younkins, one of the guitar players for the goddamn Kicks band,
That's right. The goddamn Kicks band.
best
Yep.
rock and roll band ever. I swear to God. So sad they're
Right.
gone. It's because it's like I used to go to Kick shows. That was my fun thing. That's what I did for myself basically every year. And now sometimes I remember I can't go see Kicks, and it eats at me. I was at Jurgles a couple weeks ago. You guys used to play there in Warrendale, Pennsylvania, every year,
Right.
and I saw Sebastian Bach there. And before the show started, I heard Midnight Dynamite over the loudspeaker, and I was like, it really sucks that I can't see them come out right now.
Oh yeah. That's right. We should have been there.
Yeah,
Ready
you
to
guys.
play. I vaguely remember that club, but yeah, I know that we played there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were there both times I saw you kicks there at 2018, 2019.
Turtles. Yeah, yeah. I vaguely. Yeah, yeah.
It's
What?
quite a small club.
Where's it at?
Warrendale, Pennsylvania, outside
Okay.
Pittsburgh.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
You guys
Okay.
sold it out every year.
Well, I hope so. That was our job. So yeah.
So
But
before I ask you about the history of the band, I actually had something I was going to ask you about that I never got many details on. So during COVID, you guys did a show at the Tally Ho Theater, but it was like a very very small amount of people. Uh,
uh-huh.
so how did that work?
It was tough. It was tough for Steve, the lead singer, to engage with people. It was like 60 people were sitting down and sitting way back in the back. I had a great time. Um, I really did. I had a great time playing that night. I thought the band played well, but Steve, it was tough on Steve. And it was tough on everybody to go through what we went through with the COVID thing. But yeah, we were trying to find, and the promoters or club owners were trying to find ways to engage and get people to come out and see some entertainment without getting sicker.
Mhm.
So that's what they tried. We did the best we could.
I know you guys did a couple, or maybe it was just one. There were some drive-in shows that year as well, if I
Yeah.
remember.
It was in Frederick, my hometown, where Brian and I grew up. Brian Forsythe and I grew up in Frederick, Maryland. It was at the fairgrounds, Frederick's Fairgrounds, and yeah, it was a drive-in. Everybody drove in, stayed near the cars, and it was cars as far back as you could see.
So
Um,
what was that like? You're in the middle of the pandemic. Live music, as we know it, is pretty much dead. People are live streaming at the most. How was it to kind of get back onto a stage and have a couple hundred people watching you?
oh, it was great. I mean, that's what we do. We were a great live band. Not
The
to sound
best.
egotistical. Thank you. Um, the, it was good. The driving thing worked out well. It did, and people stayed near their cars, and it was all good. I think they have it transcended to create a couple more drive-in shows for other bands. So it was
You,
good.
it's interesting because I would be nervous to do something like that, where everybody's in their cars and whatnot, because I always think there's gonna be that one Yahoo who lays on his horn, maybe, or
Well, we would sort him out and hunt him down and tell him to shut up. Turn the horn off. No, it was all good. People actually stood outside their cars
oh,
around.
okay.
Yeah, they weren't. Yeah, it kind of said everyone. It was everyone was pretty much 10 feet apart from each other. Yeah, so it was good.
So, I guess what am I getting at here? Sorry, I have had no sleep. Um,
Hey,
yeah, I work
what?
nights. So
Oh,
with that,
okay.
when that was going on, did you kind of get the idea that maybe for a while this was going to be how you guys perform? I mean, I know you were absent from the band after this point for a brief period of time.
Uh huh.
But did you have this idea that maybe this is how it was going to be for maybe a year, 2 years, three
I
years, or
I really did. Yeah. No, no, no one knew what was going to happen.
because
But I did
M3
think,
was put off?
yes. Um, but yeah, I thought maybe this was going to be the new protocol to play rock and roll drive-ins. That was a good thing, really.
Now
But
I sorry to interrupt. Now
that's
I know. When did you kind of come back from the hiatus? Because I know you were not playing live for a while. When did Blues Vultures start coming around again?
I started the Blues Vultures when Kix was split up for 8 years. I lived in Los Angeles for a while, made a record there called The Slimmer Twins, Lack of Luxury.
Hmm.
And then I had to move back because my parents passed away. And I moved back because my mom passed away. And then I had to help my dad uh, clean out the house. And a big warehouse. I had a bunch of Kicks gear in. I had to move it so I had to move back to help my father because there was a lot of work. It was my father's farm, and there was a lot of work to be done for him to sell the farm after my mom passed away. So I moved back, and meanwhile, I put together this band called the Blues Vultures, and um, I was so sick of the 80s music. I couldn't take another note of 80s. I went back to the roots where I began with Chuck Berry, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, and the Stones and the Beatles. And I started that band. We played those cover songs, and it inspired me to write songs for it's called Cheap Guitars, Honky Tonk Bars was the Blues Vultures' first CD. Then the second CD was called Pick to the Bone. And it's totally roots rock and roll, more kind of like the Black Crowes or the Rolling Stones. That's what I really like to play because that's what I grew up with was uh uh was the Beatles. And where did
Hmm.
they get it? From Chuck Berry, Carl Perkins. Where did they get it? We go back to Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters. So I went back to all those roots and started over again. And it fulfilled me musically, and I'm still doing that. I have a next Friday will be a record release show at Club 66 in Edgewood, Maryland, and the Blues Vultures are performing, and we will have our new CD that I poured my heart and soul into, and so did the guys for the last year. And it's called "You Can't Ruffle My Feathers," and it's a little more rocking than the last three records I made on my own. Well, with the first one I told you about I made in LA, that was with a friend of mine. I wrote the songs with called the Slimmer Twins. But the two Blues Vultures CDs, um, we hadn't made one for 10 years because I was really busy with Kicks. And but meanwhile, I was putting songs together. So yeah, we got our new record coming out. I'm really excited about that. It's next Friday night. We have a record release show. There's this record's a little more harder rock than the last two. It's a little more Aerosmith vibe to it, a little more blues rock, like a little. It's rocking. So I hope everyone takes a listen, and it will be available on our Blues Vultures Facebook page, our Bandcamp page, and we're gonna have it stream. We have to master it for streaming next. We've had it. It's being pressed right now at disc makers for CDs. Then we'll have it mastered for vinyl and put it out on vinyl. That takes a while.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'm very proud of the record. I'm proud of the guys in the band. I love making the record. We had some complications towards the end that kind of held us up for 2 months with an engineer. I don't know what happened to him. He kind of flaked on us. I don't know personal problems or what was going on with him, but I had to find another engineer to finish the record with.
Oh
So it
wow.
took an extra 2 months to do that. And it was quite complicated to sort through everything and get it mixed and get it mastered. It took a lot of work, and but it's done. There are a few things I had to let go because of that situation with the engineer that I started with, and the files that he gave. Since there's a few uh, things on the mixes that I could have done better on my own if I would have mixed it. And I'm not trying to sound egotistical, but I know how the songs are supposed to sound.
Mhm.
And it was tough to always get the engineers to no, this has to be here, but you mix this guitar coming in. They don't quite get it all the time. I could do a better job than they did. I know I could, but they got to have their hands on the board and
Mhm.
they've got their agendas, and I
Mhm.
have to deal with that because I'm not. I record demos here, in my little studio where we practice the Blues Vultures, but those are, and I did a lot of guitars for the new record right here in my studio because I have a bunch of old vintage amps over here, and all my guitars are here. So I did a lot of the guitar work here, but the drums and the basic tracks were all done at the engineer's house. Actually, we got a good sound in his house for the drums and the vocals and stuff, but I'm real happy with the record. There's, like I said, there's a few things I'm a perfectionist and I know I could have done better. When I hear it, I go, oh, that guitar is supposed to come down. This was supposed to come in. The harmony guitars are supposed to come in here. But the guys are just, you know, I did the best I could with the engineers. So I'm
Now,
grateful that it's done.
I had I had heard from an interview with Steve quite some time ago that the kind of what sowed the seeds for a Kicks reunion was your band Funny Money would open for play with no sorry your band Blues Vultures would open with Steve's band Funny Money, and occasionally you guys would come out and play a mini Kicks set, and I'm just sitting here trying to like because Blues Vultures has a very different sound than Funny Money. I'm
Absolutely.
wondering, you guys were basically put together there because you were both Kicks members. I mean, I can that's the only reason I could think of as to why it was billed.
Yeah, probably. And or, I would converse with Steve. I said, he goes, "Hey man, you want to open this club we're opening?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, let's do that." Yeah, so it was good. And
It it was interesting though because I'm kind of curious. How did you guys get Brian on board after the fact? Then did you just call him and he said, "I want to do it," or?
we, I was opening for Steve's band at this club in Baltimore, and there was a club owner, may he rest in peace. For the life of me, I'm forgetting his name. I don't. It'll come to me. Uh, yeah, he passed away. It was unfortunate. We were playing at his club, and one night he said, "What if I pay to fly Brian in, and you guys get up and do like a Blues Vultures play, Funny Money play, and then all you guys get up and do like a kick set?" And we scratched our heads and thought about it. And we're like, I don't know. At first, I didn't want to do it because, and Brian and I were like scratching our heads because if we were going to do it, Brian and I wanted Donnie in the band.
Mhm.
So for a few weeks, I didn't agree to it because I wanted Donnie back in the band. Because he's the guy I started the band with. And Donnie and I started with a couple guys from Pittsburgh at first. And then when they didn't work out because we couldn't afford to keep them down, we were so poor at 20 years old. Uh, uh, I said, I know a guitar player, a great guitar player, my hometown, Brian. So within 3 months, after I started working with Donnie, it was like about 3 months, we were in Brian's basement with a different singer and drummer, of course, back then. We became the Shoes. So I got off the track, but what happened was Bob Schmuff was the guy's name. He said, "What if I fly Brian in to play?" And I was like, scratching my head, Brian. I was like, I don't know, man. How are we going to do this out, Donnie? And Steve and Jimmy. Well, Jimmy was playing with the Blues Vultures then, uh, and then playing drums with the Vultures. Um, and Steve said, well, let's just use Mark from Funny Money. So that's what we did. and that's how it started. We played at um, the Thunderdome in Baltimore. It's not there anymore, but Bob Schmuff ran that club, and the damn place was just packed. But I felt at the time it wasn't fair to Donnie that we went out and did this. So I was just calling it like four fifths of kicks because I thought this is not fair to him. And it was just us four, our pictures on a poster. And Mark wasn't even on the poster. It was just a one time gig, we thought. And then it led to another gig. And then it led to another gig locally. And then we were playing gigs locally, didn't think about traveling. But Brian, living in LA at the time, he knew a manager or an agent, Sullivan Big. He
Mhm.
goes, the guy Sullivan Big keeps talking about we can play across the country at festivals. He can book us in clubs. And I said, let's go. And but Steve was apprehensive because I don't think he really wanted to travel anymore. But we did. And then it snowballed into more and more and more shows. And it lasted for 20 more years. And it was great.
So
And yeah,
how did you guys feel like? Because the thing is, Kix was phenomenal band, but obviously didn't reach like the commercial success of a lot of your contemporaries. What was it
yeah,
like? Because I remember you guys the first 2 years you played at M3 when it was a 1 day festival. I mean, you guys were a little lower on the billing. You'd come out at 3 or 4 p.m.
we did. It
Right.
was, yeah.
It was
We
hot that second year. I still remember. I was baking.
remember that. Yeah, I do. Uh,
Steve was
it,
dripping sweat. His shirt was off, man. It was going everywhere. It was
yeah.
muggy out there.
Well, Steve used to make the joke that if you only have one hit song, you have to go on in the afternoon. If you got three hit songs, you go on in the evening. Four hit songs, you're the headliner. So
Well,
he made,
I was gonna ask, like, because that's a relatively large venue, right? I mean, Merriweather's what, 15,000 people? I think somewhere in that ballpark when you count the lawn. And
yeah,
you guys got to headline, a pretty major rock festival for years and years and years. Minus 2 times. I think Tom Kiefer went on after you in
yeah.
2018, and
We've known
Wasp.
years, but he would not go on before us. And we were like, whatever, we'll go on. We didn't care. We
Yeah.
just wanted to play. We didn't care if he wanted to go on last. Fun. We'll go on before him. We like Tom, and he's a great guy, great performer, great guitarist. I
Oh yeah.
love his guitar playing.
I mean, you talk about blues, that's where all his influence comes from. You can
Oh
tell.
yeah,
Long Cold Winter. I mean, that's just
oh
a
yeah,
masterpiece.
yes, it is. He's great. Yeah, but hey, we didn't mind.
S-
We were that way. We got done. We were go. I went out to watch him play.
And then the other time was Wasp in 2013, which I always said was a maybe a more understandable case. I mean, they came all the way from Europe. They were in the middle of that world tour. I don't
Oh,
think they
that
would have settled for anything less than a headlining spot.
yeah,
Um, I regretted missing that show. It took me years and years and years until Wasp came back to the U.S. and I was actually able to go and see him, only for Blackie Lawless to use backing tracks the whole time. So that was that was fun. Uh,
yeah. Right. I was I don't know. Oh, I've never met Blackie Lawless. I don't know any of those guys.
yeah.
So yeah, I would. We didn't get to talk to. I don't know a thing about them. They were a heavy metal band that I'm not a heavy metal guy, so I don't know
Oh,
any Wasp. I
so
did like that one song they did. Oh, did they do "I Don't Need No Doctor" by Humble
yeah,
Pie?
yeah, that
That
was on the Electric Circus album. Yeah,
Yeah, that I liked a lot. And then something down in Texas. What was that
Blind in
song?
Texas.
I like that one too.
It's
And
a phenomenal tune.
video of him like on some like a his mic stand was like a motorcycle or something.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. I got to tell you, I saw their very first show ever at the Troubadour in Los Angeles, California in 1982. I was living out there for a week. A week. I was living out there for a while, and I was my old van, which I still have, ran out of gas going up this hill on Larrabee Street. I was so poor, and I backed it up and I let it drift down into this guy's driveway, which he was not pleased. Said, "Go get some gas." And I saw these guys tacking up these posters on the I don't know buildings, and then I think there was a couple of telephone poles. And I went over and looked at it and it said, "Wasp tonight at the Troubadour, first show ever." I thought, okay, I'm gonna go. But I was so poor I couldn't pay to get in. But the Troubadour has a bar out front and it's got a window. So I was I was watching them through this window. I could barely see them. The place was packed. It was the loudest band I'd ever heard in my life in a club so far. But it was different. It was like massive, this new thing of like this heavy metal, and the guitar players were like finger tapping and doing all this crazy shit that, I didn't grow up with all that stuff. And I was like, what in the hell is this? I didn't quite get it, but yeah, it was loud. That's all I can say. But I really couldn't. I was at their first show ever. I didn't really know what was going on because I didn't know their songs. It was all new to me. It
Mm.
was but I thanked them for doing what Motley Crue did in 1982. I was friends with Tommy Lee out there. He had our first Kicks record,
Oh
and
wow.
I was going to see Motley Crue because I'd gotten their first record on Leather Records um, before it went on a major label. And when I got out there, I thought I got to find these guys because they're saving rock and roll. Because I was sick up to here with new wave and all that crap. Because I grew up with 60s and 70s, and I saw all these great bands in the 70s, great bands. And then, went through the disco and the punk thing. The punk thing's all right. I get that because I'm a New York Dolls fan. But when the new wave came in with like a flock of seagulls and Boy George and all this stuff, the I couldn't handle it. I was just
Mm.
like, this is the worst music I've ever heard in my life. So Motley Crue and Wasp, they brought rock and roll back. They really did. Those guys, I have to hand it to them. Thank you for doing that. And
So
they put the knife in the heart of New Way. They went, and we're back. And they paved the way for us and everybody else to play through the 80s. They
so
did.
what was it like then, headlining M3 every year and seeing those massive crowds out there? Because you guys only really got to do that like once a year.
It was great. I would be, I, I would practice for hours. I poured my heart and soul into it. I, it, you know, it was just an awesome thing to go out and see that many people and that they appreciate music and that we were entertaining them and they were giving back to us. We were giving to them. It was amazing. And I just wanted to play as good as I could. I wanted the band be as tight as we could. And we did the best that we could always.
That
It was
last that last show at Merriweather back in September, I was blown away by several factors. One, that show sold out in the pavilion in like 2 hours. Like I remember going to buy tickets. I was at work. I was working at some rubber factory, and it was hot as heck. Sweat was dripping down, and
yeah,
I was
oh man.
sitting there with my phone, like hidden in the corner out of my boss's view. Like I gotta buy tickets, and I was only 5 minutes into the sale, and we were still kind of like further back than I would have wanted to be. That show sold out so fast in the pavilion.
It was sold out. I never found out. I didn't know if it was or not.
The pavilion was sold out day one within a couple of hours. There
Wow.
were there were lawn seats. I don't know if you ever saw the aerial photographs, but I saw a photograph of um I saw a photograph of the crowd like fanning back past the pavilion, and it was like
Uh,
insane. That was so many people. I just couldn't believe that. I mean,
it went far as back. I mean, I could see people out on the lawn, but I couldn't see over there's like a knoll or a hill that goes up over. And couldn't tell how many people were back there. Never could. But yeah, we were grateful. Everybody came. It was bittersweet. I was grateful to the band um, for having me that night. It was so good to see everybody. And Bob Perry, who took my place for 2 years, God bless him. And I'll tell that story in a little while if you want to hear it,
yeah,
why I wasn't there. I was just grateful that they asked me to come play. And it meant so much to me because I missed it so badly. Um, but yeah, um, I wish I could have played more songs,
a
but
heck
I'm
of an
great.
opening. I'll tell you that much. Like, I can't think of a better song to open with than Atomic Bombs
Yeah, that was the first song that I
off the first
ever
record.
that's the first song I ever played with Donnie. When I got together with Donnie, that's the first notes I ever played. I go, I'm going to show you this original. I said, all right, Atomic Bombs. That's the first song I ever played with Donnie Purnell.
So
And I
cool.
love the song. It's probably my favorite Kick song.
It's really heavy. Like it's got
Yeah.
it's especially for like a band that's considered like glam. That's a really heavy lick you got going on
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, um, yeah, and I had this old Stratocaster that I learned the song on, so it just lent itself for me to do the whammy bar bits and the dive bombs to sound like bombs. So, um, unfortunately, that '63 Strat got stolen, but
there.
I got it replaced with a '64 Strat. Anyway, um, yeah, so that's it was bittersweet that night. I'm grateful to each and every guy in Kicks and Bob Perry.
Mhm.
Bob was great. He lives about um 20 miles from me. So I would go to he's got a nice warehouse. So all summer, last summer, I dug out my kicks gear and it needed some work because I hadn't used it for a while. So I had to clean it up, get to uh, work on the amplifier. I had to work on everything. It needed work. So Bob let me do that at his warehouse. And then Jimmy would come in. It was good to see him. And we go over the songs. And Bob and I go over the songs. And I was there, Bob's a lot. We became good friends. And I love and respect the guy. I just saw him yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
Uh,
I walked out of there thinking one thing though, which was I wonder if the guys that run Merriweather like missed out on a cash cow here by not having like just a yearly independent kick show because I guarantee it probably would have sold out like every single year. I think people
I,
would come seen you twice.
I don't think it would have, Stefan.
Really?
Because they would come to M3 to see us, and you can't um unless yeah, if I heard it was Aerosmith's last show, I'm going to be there. If I heard it's the Stones last show, I'm going to be there. Otherwise, I got other things going on. Like I just missed the Stones in Philly, and I knew they were playing, but I'm so busy that
Mm.
I just overlooked it. And that happens with a lot of people. You get busy, but when you know it's somebody's last show, you're going to go. So I don't. I appreciate you saying that and being optimistic. However, I don't think we could have sold it out every year like that. I really don't.
Certainly
I
enough to certainly
because
enough
there's
to make it worth your while. I'm sure. I mean, you guys had crazy fans that would follow you around like every show. I mean, I saw you 8 times. Some people would be seeing you 8 times in a year. I would see the same people at several kick shows across the country sometimes.
oh really? Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I know there are yeah, there's the diehard fans for every band. Every
uh,
band's diehards.
oh yeah. I no, trust me, I'm a Kicks diehard.
Thank you.
One more thing before I kind of delve more into the history of the band. Rock Your Face Off. Great record. Very good record. Is there
Yeah,
any re it had the kick sound, like beyond what I expected of it, because it's gonna be a little rocky because you don't have Donnie there, right? Like,
Right.
so it,
It
it's it
was rocky in the beginning when we're driving to shows and Mark's playing me these demos of his songs and it didn't sound like kicks. It sounded like what Mark likes, heavy metal or whatever. It was just Van Halen was a big one for Mark with him growing up. And he wrote it with a friend of his, wasn't in the Kicks band, and he wrote it with a guitar player that played like that. And I was like, that just doesn't sound like Kicks. So Brian Forsyth turned those songs around and made them Kicks songs. I was busy finishing a Blues Vultures record, and when they started this thing, and I was there every day. Brian and I were there every day, and I saw him transcend these songs into kicks, and it was just amazing. It blew me away how he turned these riffs around. Because maybe we should try it like this, and then it'll sound like a kicks riff. And he, especially like what's why am I not thinking? I'll think in a minute. Wheels in Motion,
that great song.
great song. When I first heard it, Mark had written it and did a demo. It sounded nothing like Kicks. But once we started playing it, then we kind of made it sound like Kicks. And Brian had some great ideas that he brought in to turn those songs around and Kicksify them. He did a wonderful job. Hats off to you, Brian.
That it's funny you bring up Wheels in Motion. I recently inherited a MPC Electra from my uncle. He gave me a old guitar, and that was the first song I played on it, actually.
Oh, cool.
Uh,
Oh,
so
so you're a guitar player, man. That's
yeah,
great. Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Now, probably mostly because of Kicks, because I saw M3's show in 2009. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I want to do that. So I asked my parents for a guitar for my birthday that year.
How old were you then?
11.
Wow. I
No,
was 111.
no, is there any reason we didn't get another Kicks record after that? I know Steve, he put out his solo record a couple years ago, You're Welcome, which is a very good record. Not what I'd call a Kicks record, but he said that kind of stemmed from, him kind of shopping the material to the rest of the guys in the band. And, you guys weren't terribly hot on it. Like, is there a reason we didn't get another Kicks record or?
I think everybody got disappointed that the record just didn't do anything. We could only sell it at shows. I don't even know how many we sold. Um, Mark never told me. I mean, there's no well, there's record companies, but they don't want anything to do with that kind of music, or a band that's been around for so long. They want the new stuff. They want like I mean, we were on Atlantic Records, and the last I saw, it was called Atlantic Hip Hop or Atlantic
Oh
Rap.
gosh.
And I mean, I was just like, oh my God, that's it. Um, when we used to record at Atlantic Studios in New York City for the first record and the second or third record, I mean, you walk in, and you see Aretha Franklin. They had all these Motown artists because the Motown artists from Berry Gordy went to Atlantic from Chicago. I think Chicago, yeah, Chicago. Motown, yeah. Anyway, Berry Gordy's all his acts went to Atlantic, Stephen, and it was amazing. And then we walked in home and see Stones, Led Zeppelin. They had all these uh, platinum records on the wall in the
Mm.
hallway. But that was real. That was the roots. That was the good stuff. Then all the record companies folded in in the 90s, mid 90s.
Mm.
And then I guess they redeveloped in a different way to cater to whatever's most popular now. Like I said, Atlantic hip hop or Atlantic rap, it's called, or
Because you guys
whatever.
weren't on Atlantic when Show Business came out. I think that was CMC or somebody like
Yeah, that's
that.
a big mistake.
We
Let
were
me,
talking about Atlantic and
yes. So yeah, those now you would mention why we didn't make another record. Well, is because we didn't have anybody to distribute Rock Your Face Off.
Hmm.
There's no record companies that want to help bands do anything. I mean, I don't know, but maybe there is. Um, but we had no help from anybody, so we just had to sell them on our website and then at shows and do
And
what the
the response to the material live, from what I saw, was quite well from the fans. And I
yeah
heard "Love Me with Your Top Down" quite a bit. A local radio station here in Ohio was actually playing it.
really
Yeah, "Love Me with Your Top Down" was playing out of a radio station based in Alliance, Ohio, for quite some time, and it was really cool to hear it because I remember I was sitting there with my girlfriend at the time, and we were just sitting in the cafe at her campus, and I was just like, hang on a second. I think I recognize what's playing. And I'm like, that's Love Me with Your Top Down. I'm like, that's rare to hear in Northeastern
yeah
Ohio.
right exactly that is rare. Well, thanks for telling me that's interesting, and I'm grateful that they played it.
Now, show business, that's a very polarizing record with the Kicks community, in my experience, because it seems like a lot of Kicks fans just haven't heard it. But to me, that's like one of my top four Kicks records.
Well, thank
I think it's a phenomenal record. I mean, 911 was kind of cheesy. I don't really like that song too much, but you guys had some very different sounding material. Like I'm Bombed. That's a very different sound from you guys.
we had
Fireballs. That's again very
ACD,
different.
yeah, ACDC style kind of song.
What
You're
was it?
right.
What was
If
it?
You
Put
Were Around was a really authentic sounding song. I loved it because it was kind of old 50s sound, and I think that was a beautiful song Donnie wrote.
Now, what was it? Put My Money Where Your Mouth Is. Is that what the song's called?
Yeah, I think that was Steve's song.
I was listening to it like a month or two ago, and I was thinking to myself, man, this really sounds like Riff Raff by AC/DC. Like, it's really, really similar.
That's probably where Steve got the inspiration for it. Probably he never said, but my guess is that he did. But yeah, and she loves me not. That was a I thought that was an interesting song, different kind of. I I poured my heart and soul into that record because I was kind of like the only guitar player here to do the demos because Brian had quit the band in 92 and we made that record in 95. He played on it because we paid him to come back from LA to play on the record because we wanted it to sound like a Kicks record instead of using the guys that were had taken Brian's place. We had two different guitar players who filled in for Brian or took his place for the last 3 years that we were together. Brian left in 92. I went down with the ship in 95. Um, Grunge had just taken over. We saw we started to see the crowds a little thinning a little bit. We thought it's time to stop before it gets ridiculous.
Steve
And
said
we,
it was like French fry stands at the
uh-huh.
end there.
Yeah, it was. He's right. He's absolutely right. We were playing the smallest places possible. I don't know. I think it was time. And don't mind me. I'm with you. I'm talking with you.
Oh, that's
I,
fine.
I need one of my nicotine lozenges. I'm trying to quit. I'm alcohol and drug free for 3 years, and next week will be 3 years and 4 months.
Love
But
to
that's
hear that.
a problem.
Yeah, love
That's
to hear that. I saw Kicks in at M3 in 2017, and I remember everybody started coming out, and I was just thinking, where's Ronnie? Like, and I later learned you were in rehab, but I remember it was so weird just seeing Brian
cool.
over there. And, you know, a lot of people were kind of nice about it. I was nice about it too. He did a phenomenal job, but
No, it did.
one guitar player there's always going to be a little something missing there, especially on like Midnight Dynamite, right? That
Oh,
build up to the chorus. It's just
yeah,
it
there's
sounded a little hollow.
two intricate rhythm guitar parts in that song that drive the song. I commend that. I commend him so much for
He did a great job.
stepping up the bat. I love him. He's my brother, and I commend him for doing that. And then yeah, I mean, I wish it hadn't happened that way. In retrospect, um, if we get into talking about that, I will be very honest and open about it. But yeah, I was in rehab, and Brian stepped up to bat. But then it got to the point. It got so bad with me that I got arrested in 2021. We had all these shows in what 20 and so we had like 50 or 60 shows canceled during the COVID.
Hmm.
And Steve or Sullivan would text and go, yeah, another one's been canceled. Another one's been canceled. And I was actually living in a sober house at the time at a recovery house, and all these shows were being canceled. Then I came back home and I went out like an idiot and drank again. And I turned into Mr. Hyde. It's all in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, and I got arrested and I got thrown in jail,
Oh boy.
being belligerent, just drunk and disorderly, fighting with police officers. It's not me. But when I drink, my frontal lobe shuts down and I go crazy if I drink too much. Or if I drink anything, I can't have one drink because one drink is too much. And it's I can't have one drug. I can't have one drink. I have an addictive personality. I have the isms. I was born with it. My great grandfather was in a gutter drunk. He died along a roadside with 35 cents in his pocket. My father never drank. My grandfather never drank because they saw what Johnny did.
Mm.
I drank. And I mean, for a while, I thought I was Johnny reincarnated or something. But it was a nightmare. I mean, I had 21 years of sobriety, 21, and I went on in 2009. I went on hepatitis C interferon. I went on the old hepatitis C interferon ribavirin treatment. I had a Hep C, and I kept putting it off, putting it off. But my fibrosis in my liver, as we all know, Hep C attacks the liver. I had two biopsies and I kept putting it off. And in 2008, I had a biopsy and it said my liver was at stage 2 fibrosis. So the Hep C was eating away my liver. Stage 4 is cirrhosis. So I went through the evil interferon ribavirin. Steven Tyler went through that too for a year. It's 11 months. You feel sick. You feel you you feel like you have the flu. You're irritable. I had rashes on my face, all over my body. It was like chemotherapy. My
Mm.
hair fell. I had really long hair. My wife was picking it up off the floor. It got really thin. I had to cut it shorter and shorter. It never did grow back like it used to, but that stuff was awful. And what happened was I couldn't. The worst side effect was I could not sleep. The doctor put me on this drug called Ambien, and it got me high. I don't think they knew it was a new drug. The doctor knew he's treating me for Hep C. How did I get Hep C? From using drugs with needles, and I caught it. And and he puts me on this drug called Ambien, and it got me high, and I relapsed. I knew right away that I relapsed after 21 years, and I wasn't telling anybody. I didn't tell my sponsor. Um, well, at the time, I didn't have a sponsor. That's another story. My sponsor was for 21 years. He's my sponsor for 17 years of my 21. He was fantastic. He was the best sponsor in the world. He knew the book. We went to meetings. He ran a record company, he was part of Atlantic Records or Modern Records. He ran Stevie Nicks' label, and he was the CEO, and he was my great sponsor. And when I lost him, it was like losing my big brother. When the record companies folded, he had to get two jobs to keep his house going,
Oh
and
boy.
he had to let a couple of his sponsees go, and I was one of them. He didn't have time for me anymore. He had 7 sponsees, and it broke my heart to lose him. And then having that said that, and then getting this Ambien got me high, and I didn't tell anybody at the meetings, and I was holding on. I didn't tell anybody in the band for 2 years. Uh, Even after I got off the interferon ribavirin, I was still getting Ambien because I was hooked on it.
Mm.
And it was just, it would, some people it doesn't affect, but me, at first I was hallucinating off of it. Then after that, after tolerance built up, I would get so, I would take it, and then I would remember there's this food thing that happens, and I've heard other people have done it. I would remember getting the peanut butter out at 11:30 at night, making a peanut butter sandwich high on Ambien, all fuzzy and happy and shit and high, and then I would forget to put it all away. My wife would come up in the morning, punch me in the arm. She goes, "Go down and look at the kitchen and clean it up." There'd be peanut butter smeared everywhere. I didn't remember. I'd black out.
Man.
It's like being on whiskey or something. And it took me. Then what happened was my dad died, and I knew I'd already lost my sobriety. And when Dad died, I worked through my mom's death with my sponsor I just talked about when I was 41. He worked me through it with the steps, and I got through the grief into acceptance. I didn't do that with my dad. I didn't have a sponsor. I knew I'd relapsed. What does a drug addict do? He says, F it. Within a month after my dad died, I was shooting heroin and cocaine, smoking weed again. And then 2 years later, I started drinking. And that, it just went downhill from there. It was terrible because the disease of alcoholism is progressive. And I share this at meetings because I want people to know if you have sobriety, you hang on to it because it's precious. Because if you go out and have that one drug or drink, you're off to the races again, and the disease will just be happy to have you back. And it's worse than it was than when I was in my 20s, and I sobered and cleaned up when I was 32 at Hazelden in Minnesota, right before our Blow My Fuse tours with Rat. And I was there for 30 days. I came out. I followed all. I had a great counselor there, and he saved my life. He gave me the tools to work with. I went to meetings all the time. I read my big book. I read my 12, 12. I did the steps. I did everything that I was asked to do, and it kept me sober and clean for 21 years until this drug woke it up again. And I just I went through 5 rehabs in 10 years until the last one that I went to stuck because they locked me in the rehab. I was locked in there with a GPS on my ankle. They took me out of jail by the skin of the judge's teeth. The owner of the rehab, God bless him, he's a friend of mine, and my lawyer, and my wife, by the skin of the teeth. The judge goes, I don't see why we should let him out of jail. This guy keeps effing up, because I think he should stay in jail. And the lawyer and the rehab guy said, well, he needs help. He's not going to get it in jail. So they let me go to the rehab, and they GPSed me in the rehab. I was not allowed to walk off the sidewalk out back for 6 months. And I stayed in that rehab for
And this would have
6 months.
been 2021.
Yes, February 2026, I went to jail. And then my sober date is February 28th because all the drugs got out of my system. And I went into the rehab and I stayed there for 6 months. And then I went to a year of strict recovery houses. And then I went through 9 months of a sober house. I was not even, for 5, 6 months, I was not even allowed to call my family, my
Oh my
wife or kids.
goodness.
I didn't know if I'd ever see them again. I lost my job in the Kicks band. I lost my family. So I had to I had to hit major bottom to come back up to being where I'm at now. And just telling this story makes me realize how grateful I am.
Now, you had resumed playing with Blues Vultures in 2022.
Yes.
Is there, if you're okay with talking about it, is there a reason you weren't invited to Kicks after that, or?
I think it was because they did not trust me, and they had Bob, who was Bob. Bob saved that machine. They needed. They need Bob runs a very great. What would be the word? Prodigious? No, I don't know. He runs a very lucrative construction company. I hope he doesn't
Oh,
mind me
okay.
telling. And so Bob came in with really nice mixing board, expensive board that the band really needed. The band's truck had broken down, the trailers were broken down. He had a truck and trailer that they needed to use. I think he got new in-ear stuff for the band. They needed all this stuff. They needed him to help that band stay alive. And he's a great guitarist.
And it
And
worked.
and it worked. And that's why they didn't ask me back, because they didn't trust me. And um, they had Bob, and he was doing a great job. So why would they ask me back? I didn't blame them for it. To this day, I don't blame them for it. I missed them. I missed them so badly. Um, like my when I was in the sober house, it was in Columbia, Maryland. It was like a mile from Meriwether,
Oh
and I
boy.
remember them playing there. Was it 2022? And I remember sitting in that sober house in that little room I lived in while they were playing, and it was the hardest thing, and that too I needed to go through to humble me
Hmm.
and keep me sober, and I thank them all for everything that they did, because it's got me to the point where I am now, sober and clean, and back playing out and with the Vultures. And I thank them so much for asking me to come back to Merriweather and play with them. I love them all, and that was really cool.
You know, it's that last show was so bittersweet, but I am very happy that the band, rather than stick around, and I'm not going to name names, but there are some acts from that era that just really need to go.
I'm just
Not because I dislike them, not because I don't admire them, but it's like, man, you could have gone out like on top of your game and still been able to, make some appearances and not be held to so much scrutiny, you know what I mean? Like, cuz I make music as well. I play music, and I was one of the people that kind of, I noticed you guys tune it down a half step. I noticed, Steve was changing his vocal techniques, and I'm like,
yeah,
when that
right,
started happening in 2021, because you guys still sounded great, but I was like, all right, because one thing that impressed me with Kicks when I saw them from like 2010 to 2019 was they're playing at the same tuning that they do on the album, which is like
that's right,
unheard of from bands of that era. Everybody else was knocking it down a half step, and I'm like, man, this is
that's right,
crazy. And when the adjustments were made, that's when I was like, yeah, retirement's on the horizon. I don't know when it's gonna be, but it's coming,
right.
because that's just not something the Kicks band would do. But I remember after we left the last show at Merriweather, we had stopped at a 7-Eleven somewhere, and some other people saw my shirt and they're like, "Oh, you guys were there too? Yeah, when do you think they're coming back?" And I'm like, I don't think they're coming back. Steve's tired. Uh, Jimmy died. That's a pretty big one.
Yes, yeah.
And
I sent him a message yesterday. Yesterday was Jimmy's birthday, and I said, Jimmy, happy birthday. I love him.
Now, I can only imagine though it must have sucked for like Bob and Mark and probably you as well, because like you get to go out there and you get to play with them, and you're probably feeling on top of the world, and it's like, well, shit, I'm not going to be able to do that again.
No, that was it.
Isn't it
But
true you cracked like a joke in a group text or something saying like, when can we do it again? And like,
I did. How did that get out? I was like, I did. I said, so I forget what I'd said. You're absolutely right. I did crack a joke. I said, guys, that was great. Thanks for having me. Let's do it again someday. And Jimmy said, I don't think so. Something
is
like that.
is he up to anything now? I know Steve's done playing. Brian's still playing with Brian O'Bucket. Mark has the Sun Dogs. Do you know if Jimmy's up to anything, or is he just kind of?
Bob told me when I saw him. No, I saw Bob on Wednesday. That's right. Not yesterday. I saw Bob Wednesday. He helped me program a new in-ear monitor thing I have. And he had mentioned that Jimmy is playing drums in his basement and sending back and forth with Brad Divins, who is a great engineer, ideas. So I think he's doing some stuff with Brad Divins. So I was
Brad
really happy.
Brad played, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, but I believe Brad played on Steve's solo record a couple of years
Yes,
ago
he
and
did.
helped out with it. Did you hear that record? I mean, I'm sure you did, but
Actually, I did because I actually played. I went up to Steve's house a few times and played a guitar on some of his songs.
oh wow.
And yeah, and um, actually, Steve had invited me. This is prior to me getting arrested and thrown in jail in 2021.
Mhm.
Uh, this was probably 2019. Uh, a couple times I went to Steve's house, played on some of his songs, and then I was invited to play on his record. However, at the time, um, I didn't feel, I don't know how to explain this. I was living at a recovery house after like the fourth rehab
Mhm.
before uh, everything went down really hard. Uh, and I remember talking to Steve, and I said, well, if you've got guys playing on it, I think Bob was played on it. Bob Perry played on the record. I
Yeah.
said, if you have Bob Perry playing on the record, I said, I think you got it covered. And I kind of backed off from playing on the album because I was actually writing songs for the Vultures at the time for this record I just made. So I felt that it was all worked out fine. I
That
think
Steve's record was just so good. I think I wish more Kicks fans could hear it, because that's that one song on there, Strip. That's a super good tune. It's
that
very
is,
jazzy,
oh,
very bluesy,
yeah, that's a great song. I agree. Yep.
and it's a
Yep.
shame we never got to hear any of that live.
Yeah, I think there might be one guitar solo of mine on that record. It might be on, is there a song called Bad Dog or something? Or no, Bad Luck, Bad something.
Bad luck.
Bad Luck. I think I played on that one. I think he left one of my solos on that record somewhere.
You know what I was hoping for, but I kind of knew wasn't gonna happen, was I was really hoping at that last show like Donnie could come out and play Cold Shower or something, you know. Um
We
he
all, he didn't, you know, the door was open for him, but we all knew that he would not come.
Was there a formal invite sent, or was it just kind of a, hey, if he reaches out, we'll let him in?
Exactly. If he finds out, yeah, there was never a formal invitation because none of us know how to contact him.
He put out a solo record a year or two ago. I'm not sure if you heard it.
No,
It's
I've not heard it.
it's very, I don't know how to put it. Like, what was that trend in the 1970s with those, like, that kind of like, what was it, yacht rock? It was like that kind of oceanside rock and roll that people played back then. It's more. it's more akin to that. It's very, very different from, Kicks material.
Yes, so I've heard. Someday I will get to listen to it. And that's exactly what the consensus was
He
from other people told me.
he did all the vocals. I know early on in Kicks he did do some of the vocals. There was a song called Fire Engine, I believe. I heard a demo of
Right.
it where he
Yeah.
where he sang on it.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Now,
And
good.
uh yeah, we had a song back in 1979, 80, before before we let's see, before we made our first record, we had a song called Out of Gasoline. Donnie used to sing that one too. There was a couple songs that he would sing. Yeah, it'd be like, like the thing when Aerosmith plays, Joe Perry always goes out and does one song and sings it. It was that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, this would be a good time to get into the kind of the history of the band before we knock off here, because that's what we got off the beaten path, but I love it. I love hearing you talk, man.
Oh, thank you. You asked
I
good question.
My dad told me about a band back in the day he saw the Shoes with called Face Dancer. Uh,
Absolutely.
what do you think of Face Dancer?
Great band. I love those guys. The original band with Scott McGinn, Kerry Kress on lead vocals, David Utter on rhythm guitar, uh, Jeff Adams on lead guitar, and oh, come on, what's the drummer's name? I'll think of it in a minute. They were a great band. They had great songs, and we were always grateful to open for them because the places would always be packed in Baltimore. And that's how we got their manager used to see us, who had gotten their record deal on Capitol. They made 2 albums on Capitol Records. Their manager would hear us and he said, "Hey, why don't I take your songs to record companies? I'll see if I can get you a record deal." And he did on Atlantic.
They had a song called I think it was called The Sphinx, which was just like it,
Oh, it's
it I loved it. And I remember when I heard it when I was younger, they weren't really around anymore. And I remember I told my dad, it's like, man, how cool would it be if like they managed to get Face Dancer to appear at M3 and had Steve do the vocals?
Oh, I know. It would be great. I totally respected and loved it. I have to go plug my phone in.
You're fine.
It's fully charged, but I think my phone's getting old. Um, but yeah, so and you'll be able to see me in a minute, but I'm gonna grab this thing. It would have been great, I think. Um, However, I don't think that uh unfortunately, yeah, like Carrie Kress unfortunately passed away,
Mhm.
and so did David Utter. God bless him. And yeah, I don't know if that could ever happen. I know that they did get back together once and play at the Ram's Head with us. They opened for us. I mean, we
Oh
used
well.
to open for them, and it was a great show. It was just oh, what is that drummer's name? I'll think of it when we hang up. Um, he's a great drummer. But it was Jeff Adams, the original drummer, and David Utter. And they had a couple they had I think Spike from Never Never sang with them. And I forget who played rhythm guitar. But it was good to oh, David was there. He played rhythm guitar. Jeff Adams, David Utter, so the two guitarists. Scott McGinn was not there, the bass player. He was the songwriter of that band. He was the uh, genius of that band that wrote those great songs. Red Shoes, what a great
Oh,
song.
that I used to hear that so much. My dad would play it and I'd be like, "What on earth is this?" Because it's very different from what you normally listen to. So,
Yeah,
um real
great.
quick, real quick, we got probably another 5-10 minutes here. How did when we talk about the early history of the band, how did Steve come into the picture?
I Let's see, we had We had Terry Brady lead singing with us. He had played in a glitter rock band. Donnie and Jimmy were in that I loved. They were called Starship back in like 1973. And Terry played with the Shoes, but he couldn't join the band because he was starting a career. His wife wanted him to get into work, and Terry
Mhm.
said, "I'll sing with you guys. I can't come to all your rehearsals, but I'll show up once a month, go through the new songs, and I'll show up your shows." And he was a great singer, but we knew he wasn't going to last. So our original drummer, Donnie Spence, who had played in bands with me in my teens,
God rest his soul.
and his sister was dating a bass player who played in a band with Steve Whiteman. And Donnie's sister said, are you still there? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Donnie's sister, this thing should be charging, um, told us about this guy who sang really high and he played drums in Joe Procopio's band. They were called Nova. So Donnie, Brian, and myself got in a car, drove to Cumberland, Maryland, went to this Democrat club, it was called, and we saw this guy sitting, blonde hair, playing drums, and an ashtray next to him with a cigarette in it, and a Schlitz can sitting on it, and a Schlitz shirt, and it was Steve Whiteman singing. He sang like April Wine. He could sing. He was singing all these songs. We're like, wow, this guy's great. So we took him inside during the break. We took him out to Donnie's or whoever's car we was in, and we played him some of our originals, and he liked them. And he moved to Hagerstown, Maryland within a week,
Oh wow.
and he was in the band then. And then Terry was able to go on with his career. Um, that's how he got in the band.
No one else could have sang for Kicks, I don't think. It's
Now,
so integral to that sound. Like that kind of high pitched giddy voice he had on like a lot of the
yes.
songs off the first record.
Uh,
That's ridiculous. Um Before we pop off here, this is gonna be fun. What would you say your favorite Kicks record is?
the first record, because we it was raw, it was us. We knew those songs like the back of our hands because we played them for a couple of years in the clubs everywhere. We went in and played those songs together. It's the only album we ever did like Aerosmith does, where you're together in a room and you play together. Jimmy was way on the far end in the big Studio A. It's at Atlantic Studios with the Gojos, the baffles around them, soundproofing. I was on the other end. Donnie was across from me. Brian must have been in between. Steve was in a vocal booth doing scratch vocals. We played those basic tracks together, and we went in and did some guitar overdubs. We did the solos overdubs, but we did all the basic rhythm tracks playing together because we knew those songs really well. That's how that record was made, and that's why it's my favorite Kicks record. Plus, it's true to my heart to play Atomic Bombs because it was the first song I ever learned from Donnie Purnell. And I have a utmost gratitude and respect for Donnie Purnell. And I love the guy. Um, Sometimes he was really difficult to work with and he drove us to the limit, but that's what makes it
Made
really,
Kicks great.
that's, yeah. And I respect that. Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. This has been a real treat for me, being a
Oh,
fan of this band my whole life. I really, really appreciate it. You're the only member of the band that responded, so I'm very happy that I could get a hold of you, man. This has been a delight.
this has been really delightful for me to talk with you. You've asked fantastic questions.
We'll have to
You're
do it
very,
again sometime.
I'll be happy to. And my family and I thank you uh, very much because I'm kind of struggling right now to make money and I appreciate it. I really do.
Hmm.
Thank you. And yeah, I'd be happy to do another one with you down the road.
All right.
So
Thank you, Donnie. Sorry, Ronnie.
It's okay, Donnie, Ronnie, Bonnie, Johnny, Johnny. It's all good.